Good morning, students. Previously, we will. One second. Okay. In previous unit, we will learn the concept of management, its scope, natures, functions, etc. But in this unit, we will cover the evolution of management thoughts. So, first point of your syllabus is study of scientific management. What is study of scientific management? Okay. The theory or approach of scientific management emerged in the 20th century under the leadership of Frederick Taylor. FW, it means W. Taylor. Actually, this theory is often described as a movement which began to influence the administration and management of organizations in those time. It means in 20th century. This theory, which analysis and synthesis workflows in an organization. Even though uh, even though Taylor is said to have propounded the scientific theory in year to come, Charles Babbage, Henry R. Twain, and Frederick Hasland Henry Metcalfe. It is a extensively used scientific management was coined by Louis Brandeis in 1910 and was used by Taylor to give scientific techniques to make the working of an organization efficient. Okay. So, scientific theory of management is also known as a Taylorism because it is defined by F.W. Taylor. The scientific theory had a significant impact on administrative thought and practice in both industrial and government organizations. So, Taylor's contribution to the scientific theory of management are contained in the following, just like some books are given or reference book are given in your book. So, what is the approach of behind that scientific management? So, Taylor, while laying the foundation of the scientific theory of management, believed that the principle of management of an organization should be based on fixed laws and scientific theory in an organization that is focused on studying the relationship between the physical nature and the psychological nature of a work. So, this scientific approach focused on lowest level of organization. Okay, in his view, it means in F.W. Taylor views there existed one best way of doing and designing the task. So the theory focused on empirical analysis of various processes and at the same time work to ensure in results with efficiency and effectively. So Taylor believed that in order to move toward effectiveness, there was a need to develop technical competencies and also in a rationalism and specialization in the working of an organization. So, as a Taylor carried on with his study of organization and its management, he observed that there was a tendency on the part of worker to neglect work and restrict the output. This is called as also soldering. He referred to these phenomenon on the part of workers to reduce the output when they are paid the same amount even on giving large outputs. So Taylor classified soldering into two types. Okay? First is natural soldering and systematic soldering, where the former referred to a habit of workers to take it easy, not being over ambitious, and the later refer to social and organizational factors, which lead to restricting of the output by workers. Taylor believed that the way to increase output of the organization was to reduce soldering through scientific techniques. So Taylor, in his scientific theory of management, believed that in order to improve the functioning of the organization, also scientific principles needed to be applied. So they were also relevant to motivate the workers for increasing their output also. So there are some principles which are given by F.W. Taylor regarding the scientific management. First is the rule of thumb needs to be replaced with science for each element of the work to be done by the worker. Next is one best way of doing a particular task need to be determined so that it would help to determine the standard output. As the best method are decided scientifically, we should train, teach, and develop the workers toward their output. Next principle is that in order to attain the required output, management should cooperate with the worker. Next is the work should be equally divided amongst the managers and the worker. The burden of responsibility for greater output lies with both of them. So, as Taylor identifies, one second. Okay. As Taylor identifying these characteristics of scientific management. So, first is science and not rule of thumb. Next characteristic is working together. Next is cooperation and not just individual role and responsibility. Next characteristic, which is identified by F.W. Taylor, that is maximum output in place of restricted output. Next is encouraging the development of each worker to greatest efficiency and output. So, therefore, scientific management, according to Taylor,
Hello, ma'am.
involve a complete change on
Hello.
the part of workers,
Hello, ma'am.
fellow workers. Yes,
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but could you give me like a live example of soldering?
sorry.
I'm actually, ma'am, I just wanted a live example, as in example right now. So, could you like explain soldering in a bit more practical way, as in like what's happening around us?
Yes, okay. Next part of the covered characteristics of scientific management. In that, this part is covered. Okay.
Yeah, amazing.
Okay. So, FW Taylor, according to Taylor, involves a complete change on the part of worker, that is fellow worker, employees, managers, and supervisors. It is important that both the workers and the managers have no conflict amongst them and that they should work toward same goals with cooperation. Thus, cooperation and not conflict is the essence of scientific management, as it aims to secure maximum output and prosperity for each employee or worker. Okay. Next part of that scientific management is the functional foremanship. It is the characteristic of scientific management, okay, which is given by F.W. Taylor on their principles regarding the scientific management. So, Taylor's notion of functional foremanship advocated that each worker be supervised and guided by 8 functional foremen, that is, specialized supervisor. Okay, under the idea of functional foremanship, planners and planning unit. He rejected the idea of single foremanship, that is the unity of command, under which the workers would receive orders from only one supervisor. So, when he gave work, route clerk, instruction card clerk, and time and cost clerk, and also it's classified in shop disciplinary. Okay, these functionaries work with the workers. The other functionaries were responsible for execution and supervision at the shop floor. It means lower level. Okay, they were classified as gang boss, speed boss, and also repair boss, and also classified as a inspector. So each worker would have 8 functional bosses, which would smoothen the progress towards specialization. Okay, as well as a separation of planning and executive processes. That is the first of all we will see the what is the planning process and execution process. First is order of work and route clerk. Is the execution boss is gang boss. Okay, instruction card clerk, it means repair boss is the execution boss of that planning process. Okay, time and cost clerk, it is execution with speed boss, and shop disciplinary, it is execution with the inspector. Okay, next next part of that scientific management is motion study. Hmm. This was a technique devised toward a standardization of methods. This involved observation of all motions processes in a particular job, and through these to determine the best set of motion. Thus, through the method of motion study, the objective was to design a preferable work method with proper techniques, tools, and their equipments in order to facilitate quick hand and body motion. Therefore, this method was directed to devise one best way to do the work. Next is time study. This technique was also devised to determine the standard time for com- completion of work through time and motion studies. Okay, it facilitates planning of daily tasks. It means the differential piece rate system. This is the exceptional principle, and other methods are given in that session. So, what is the differential piece rate system? Okay, having devised the time and motion studies, Taylor worked toward the devising the methods of payment with this parameter. So he suggested payment to worker by piecemeal on the basis of standards set by the time and motion study. So the piece rate system was guided toward motivation of worker to make more money with higher income and profits for those who work hard. Okay, so both the workers and the supervisors were paid a low piece rate up to a standard or a large bonus on the standard and a higher piece rate above the standard. So Taylor emphasized that a worker who, after scientific selection, training, and initiatives, was enabled to achieve the standard should not be made to continue with their work. So, what is the exceptional principle? This principle, the Taylor stated that a standard have been set for work and reward for achieving targets. The managers had to encourage exceptional work and not just focus on the standard performance only. Okay, and other methods which are focused by Taylor, that is the standardization of all tools and methods that is used in trade, separate planning cell or department, or instruction card for workers, and also cost saving method is also focused on by the FW Taylor. So there are some criticism for the scientific management. Okay, the scientific approach of that management had a great impact on managerial methods and thinking, but somewhere it lacked in giving a complete theory of organization. So the main points which are criticisms are by F.W. Taylor, that is the main focus of the scientific theory or approach was on shop floor and reformulation of supervisory concept for various activities of that organization. So little attention was paid to overall administrative structures of an organization. So the focus on decision making was restricted only to shop floor level. Next criticism is the approach viewed organization as a mechanical system and overlooked the human element to it. So it focused on efficiency on the organization and perceived the worker as a machine. So the perspective of opposed by the worker for that criticism. So the conception of motivation was also perceived and understood in terms of economic factors. So it focuses on just material rewards or motivation away from psychological and psychological factors also. So this was carried forward by thinkers like Elton Mayo, that is the Chester Bernard, and MP Follett was focused on behavior of workers and their role in the organization. Next criticism is the approach received widespread criticism from workers and the trade union. So Taylor emphasized on cooperation between workers and supervisors, which the trade union the perceived as a threat to unionism and workers' rights. So scientific management approach was also opposed by the managers. They believed that the adoption of scientific method left little space for judgment of managers. So it also increased the responsibility of the worker of that company. So even though scientific management approach had some obvious limitations, it made a scientific contribution to the growth of public administration as a field of system. It is the approach which led to the widespread acceptance of efficiency as the main purpose and goal of the organization. The scientific management approach contributed the purpose and goal of an organization to the orientation of prac- practitioners, executives, and government officials. Various reforms such as the centralization of administrative authority, that is the merit system, accountability, and the conduct of activities of the public administration. They blend easily with the values of scientific management. So, this unit, it means scientific management, describe all these aspects. So, scientific management movement was accepted and taken forward by management and the organization at the various level. These lead to quality assurance and quality control as a method focuses on how to improve processes and make them operationalized and standardized. So this scientific management is focused or is FW tailors are focused on the only the scientific management of that organization. So here we covered what is scientific management, and the next part is that pre-industrial revolution period. Just give me a 2 minutes, okay? So, what is a piece rate wage system? It means it is a piece rate literally means that for each unit produced, the worker is paid separately. This wage system is based on decreasing piece rate. And what is the rule of thumb? It refers to following the methods which are given by F.W. Taylor by the workers devised on the basis of their experiences. And what is shop floor? These refer to the level of the organization, which is comprising of junior level workers. And soldering, it is the method adopted by workers to reduce their output. Okay. Next part of that unit is pre-industrial revolution method. So pre-industrial revolution days are begins with the farming was the first main occupation of majority of that people. So people lived close to their food sources, and also all accommodations were local, and also it is focused on just production of goods was for use rather than profit. Weapons which kill few people at once, and life expectancy, that is 35 years old. It is and also travel and communication between far off places extremely slow. That is the all revolutions which is given by pre-industrial days. Okay, so in your book, that is the time period between 3000 to 2400 BC. That is the group of Sumerians, and that is the management practices developed written records. So first of all, we will see here the what is the agriculture revolution in predetermined days. Okay, so the agriculture revolution was a period of technological improvement and increased crop productivity that occurred during the 18th and early 19th centuries in Europe. So historians have often labeled the okay, historians have often labeled the first agriculture revolution, which took place around 10,000 BC, as the period of transition from a hunting and gathering society to one based on stationary farming. During the 18th century, another agriculture revolution took place when European agriculture shift, shifted from the techniques of the past, and new pattern of crop rotation and livestock utilization, that is the paved the way for better crop yield, as a greater diversity of wheat and vegetables, and the ability to support where livestock. These changes impacted society as the population become better nourished and healthier. So the Enclosure Act, the passed in Britain, allowed wealthy lords to purchase public field and push out small scale farmers. It is causing a migration and migration of men looking for wage labor in cities. So agriculture revolution began in a Great Britain around the turn of the 18th century. This is the several major event which we will be discussed in more detail. So the first is the perfection of the first round seed press, which would make farming labor less labor intensive and more productive. The large scale growth of new crops such as potatoes and maize. It is by in 1750, the passing of the enclosure laws limiting the common land available to small farmer in 1760. So one solution to this situation was to continue to move crops to different land. This was not feasible in only Great Britain because the country lacked a large percentage of available land. So instead of that, farmer began to utilize the barren soil by planting different crops such as clover or turnips. And these plants have a root rich in nitrogen, a necessity for replenishing soil. The cultivation of turnips was important because they could be left in the ground through the winter. So this ultimately led to an increase in livestock. So this is about the agriculture revolution. But first industrial revolution was also known as a first industrial revolution. That is the industrial revolution was the transition to new manufacturing processes in Europe and the United States in the period from about 1760 to sometimes between just 1820 and 1840. Okay, this transition includes the going from hand production methods to machines. So new chemical manufacturing and iron production processes, the um, iron manufacturing processes and iron production processes, the increased use of steam power and water power, the development of machine tools, and the rise of the mechanized factory system. The Industrial Revolution also led to an unprecedented rise in the rate of population growth. So textiles were the dominant industry of the Industrial Revolution. Okay, in terms of employment, value of output, and capital invested. Also, the textile industry was also the first to use modern production method. So it witnesses the general application of mechanical power to manufacture and transport and also in the mining. So industrial revolution began in Great Britain and many of the technological innovations were are British origins. So by the mid 19th century, Britain was the world leading commercial nation. So controlling a global trading empire with the colonies in North America and the Caribbean, and with a major military and political hegemony on the Indian subcontinent, particularly with the proto-industrialized Mughal Bengal through the activities of the East India Company. So the development of trade and the rise of business were among the major causes of the Industrial Revolution. So some economists say that the major effect of the Industrial Revolution was that the standard of living for the general population in the Western world began to increase consistently for the first time in history. Although others have said that it did not begin in meaningfully improve until the 19th and 20th century, but it is done by some economists. That is the major effects of that industrial revolution. So, Great Britain was responsible for the successful development of steam power during the 18th century, while the France contributed the ideas of personal liberty to transform the Europe and the economy of the rest of the world. So, economic historians are in a agreement that the onset of the Industrial Revolution is the most important event in the history of humanity since history of humanity since the domestication of animals and also plants. So although the structure changed from agriculture to industry is widely associated with the industrial revolution. So in the United Kingdom, it was already almost complete by in the 1760s. So rapid industrialization first began in Britain, then starting with mechanized spinning in the 1780s with the right with high rates of growth in steam power and the iron production occurring after 1800. Okay, so next is mechanized textile production spread from the Great Britain to continental Europe, the United States in the early 19th century, but with the important centers of textiles, iron and coal emerging in the Belgium and the United States, and later that the textiles in the France. That is all about the pre pre-industrial revolution. Okay, it an economic recession occurred from the late 1830 to the early 1840s when the adoption of the original evolution of the industrial revolution, such as mechanized spinning and weaving, showed that and their market matured. So innovations developed late in the period, such as the increasing adoption of locomotions, steamboats, and the steamships. So that is the hot blast iron splitting and new technologies such as the electrical telegraph widely introduced in the 1840s and 1850s were not powerful enough to drive high rate of growth. So in textile industry, what are the revolutions are considered, that is the mechanized the cotton spinning powered by steam or water increase the output of a worker by a factor of around 500. So the power loom increase the output of a worker by a factor of over 40. So the cotton gin increase productivity of removing seed from cotton by a factor of 50. So large gains in productivity also occurred in the spinning and weaving of wool and linen, but they were not as great as in the cotton. Next evolution is regarding the steam power. These their efficiency of steam engines increased so that they used between one fifth and one tenth as much fuel. The adoption of stationary steam engines to rotary motion made them suitable for industrial uses. So the high pressure engines had a high power to weight ratio, making it suitable for transformation. Okay, this steam power underwent a rapid expansion after 1800s. So next evolution is about the iron making. The substitution of coke for a charcoal greatly lowered the fuel cost of pig iron and wrought iron production. So using coke also allowed large blast furnaces, resulting in the economies of scale. So the steam engine began being used to pump water and to power blast air in mid 1750. So enabling a large increase in iron production by overcoming the limitation of water power. The cast iron blowing cylinder was first used in 1760. So it was later improved by making it double acting, which allowed higher blast furnace temperatures. So it's overcoming the limitations of that water power. So the puddling process produces structural grade iron at a lower cost than the finery forge. So the rolling mill was 15 times faster than the hammering wrought iron. So hot blast in 1828 greatly increased the fuel efficiency in iron production in the some decades that are the invention of machinery, machines, tools, or machinery tools. The first machine tool were invented. These include the screw cutting lathe, cylinder boring machine, and the milling machine. So, machine tool made the economical manufacture precision metal parts possible, although it took several decades to develop effective techniques. There are second industrial revolution is in 19th century. It is also called as a technological revolution. That phase of a rapid standardization and industrialization from the late 19th century into the early 20th century. The first industrial revolution, which ended in the middle of 19th century, okay, was punctuated by a slowdown in important inventions. But before the second industrial revolution in 1870, through a number of its events can be traced to earlier innovation in manufacturing, such as the establishment of machine tool industry, the development of methods for manufacturing interchangeable parts, and the invention of the Bessemer process to produce steel. And the second industrial revolution is generally dated between 1870 and 1940, the beginning of World War First. These advancements in manufacturing and production technology that is enabled the widespread adoption of technological systems such as telegraph and railroad networks, that is gas and water supply, sewage system, which had earlier been centralized to a few select cities. So the enormous expansion of rail and telegraph lines after 1870, that is the allowed unprecedented movement of people and ideas. That is which culmination in a new way of globalization. In the same time period, new technological systems were introduced, such as a most efficiently or significantly electrical power and telephone. So, this second industrial revolution continued in the also 20th century with early factory electrification and the production line, and ended at the beginning of World War First. This revolution is about the iron, steel, rail, and also the electrification and paper making. And also it is regarding the petroleum, chemical, maritime technology, and also rubber and bicycles are included in that second revolution. And also automation or automobiles, applied sciences, fertilizers, engines and turbines, telecommunications, that are also the part of the second industrial revolution. So this is the pre-industrial revolution period. This is our first 18th century, and the second is about the 19th century. Okay. So next part of that unit is the contribution of management thinkers in management thought. There are two authors or thinkers. They're given their thoughts about the management. First is the F.W. Taylor. That is the also the first of all we will see the first we will see the scientific management. This theory is given by the F.W. Taylor, but in detail we will see here the what is the given this what is given by F.W. Taylor in the scientific management theory. So this theory is a just theory of management. It synthesizes and analyzes workflows. Its major purpose is improving, especially labor productivity, economic efficiency. Okay, it was an old effort which is to apply science to the engineering of the procedure and the management. So he is given this small definition of the scientific management. He is called as scientific management is an art of knowing exactly what you want your men to do and saying that they do in the best and cheapest way. So what are the objectives of this scientific management, which is given by F.W. Taylor? The major objective of their scientific management is the maximum improvement of workers. It's focused on just maximum improvement of workers. Okay, this improvement shows on efficiency and effectiveness performance. Such development is the revolution in management procedure and the employee's actual performance. So it is the produces and principles of scientific management, that is the prevent the wastage of time, reduce the cost of production, secure the labor in industry, increase the efficiency of the worker, and develop the relationship between workers and managers. That are the main principles of scientific management. One by one, we will see here the principles of scientific management. First of that is science, not the rule of thumb. The basic principle of a scientific management theory by Taylor is the adoption of a scientific approach to decision making and even abandons the unscientific approach from managerial activities. So we can say that these principles suggest thinking before doing. Okay. Next is harmony, not discover. And organization contribute by two groups, that is the worker and the management. They must create the give and take relationship in the workplace. So therefore Taylor emphasized on a mental revolution, which means a change of attitude of both groups. Based on these principles, they should share the opinions and ideas of each other. Okay. So next principle is directed toward the cooperation, not individualism. It shows the importance of each other, means management and workers. So management should reward the appreciate the employees for their helpful suggestions. At the same time, employees also cooperate with the management for the improvement of the organization. Next principle is dependent on development of each and every person to his or her greatest efficiency and prosperity. So, employees should be properly trained and selected in a scientific manner. Okay. So, it is the essential for each and every organization for implementing this task. Their task, Taylor arranged some techniques for instance work study and time study, and also it is included in motion study and method study. Maximum not restricted output is called as it is the basic purpose of an organization. In this case, Taylor has emphasized the production maximization in his principle. There are some functions of scientific management given by F.W. Taylor. That is, according to the skills and abilities, an employee must be selected. So, incentives and wages have to install for enhancing their output and encouraging them. Next function is that implemented those methods which are based on the only scientific task, and it is a carefully observed on eradicating interruptions when plan runs. And the last function is that in an organization, leadership should develop and the standard. There are some features are also given by F.W. Taylor. First feature is that universal. Its principles, it means which given by F.W. Taylor's, these principles are applicable to all kind of organizations. That is the business, non-business, and all level of management. So, therefore, they are all pervasive or universal. Next feature is the flexible. Here available some flexible features. For example, dynamic guidelines, non-static rules, sufficient room for manager discretion and modification and improvement. So next is the cause and effect relationship. So it indicates that it will be the result of particular action. So if one is known, the other can be detected. Next feature is aims at influencing human behavior. That is, the human behavior is not simple and predictable. It always try to deal with human behavior so that employee can able to give the best result. Next feature is equal importance. Next is scientific selection, training and development of workers, and also include the equal division of responsibility between management and workers. Some techniques of scientific management is the work study. It includes time, method, motion, fatigue study, and next is the development of functional foremanship. Next is standardization of tools and equipment, scientific selection, placement, and training. That are the techniques of scientific management, and it also introducing costing system and mental revolution also. So there in that theory, some criticisms are included, or criticisms are identified by Taylor, which is divided into two categories. That is the workers' viewpoint and employees' viewpoint. First, we see the let us see the workers' viewpoint. That is the for increasing productivity, replace the machine instead of that man. Therefore, it may be an employment tool. So, exploitation thinking arises in a worker. So, they are not engaged in creative working. Also, workers, their principles enforces on over speeding in the work. So, these have an adverse effect on the health of employees. And also, due to extreme specialization, the employees are not capable to take a drive on their own. So, their position decrease. Mere cogs in the wheel as a result, job it's become dull, or it's a employee disappointment in the working. So workers feel that these principles make too weak of trade union. So workers don't attract this principle. So employers' viewpoint is it is an expensive system. Here emphasis on the work, study standardization and specialization. As a result, it is a time-consuming process, and this procedure is one kind of deterioration of quality. So these are all about the F.W. Taylor's management thought. Next is the Henry Fayol. Henry Fayol is the provide the administrative theory, a more general framework of management that emphasis on the process and principles of management. So he classified business activities into six categories that are the technical, commercial, security, accounting, managerial, and financial. So, Henry Ford argued that managerial activity involves the performing five functions, that is, planning, organizing, commanding, coordinating, controlling. That is, we are learned previously. So, he given the 14 principles of management in their theory. That is the first of division of work. So every person should perform a single leading function. Okay, repeatedly so that advantages of the specialization can be achieved. Specialization improve the efficiency of worker and increases the output also. Next principle is authority and responsibility. That is the second principle of their theory. That is the individuals are given responsibility to achieve the goals, and right measures of authority should be given to them to achieve the goals, and parity should be maintained between them. That is the authority and responsibility coexist whenever a person is given authority responsibilities to arises. Third principle is discipline. Employees should follow rules and regulations of that organization and should respect agreements that are designed to secure obedience. There should be effective leadership, clear understanding of rules, and judicious use of penalties so that the disciplines prevails throughout the organization. Fourth is the unity of command. No employee should have more than one boss. Okay, in order to avoid conflicting orders, every employee should receive orders from one boss only. So next principle is the unity of direction or direction. Okay, so there should be one head and one plan for those activities that aim at same objective. The same sense of purpose should prevail in the organization. So it helps. Unit of direction helps in unifying and coordinating actions and goals towards the common objective. So here, subordination of individuals, it is the interest to generate interest toward the employee. That is the sixth principle of that theory, which is given by Henry Fayol. Whenever there is a conflict between personal interest and organizational interest, the organizational interest should be given first priority. The manager should ensure that individuals are ready to sacrifice their personal interest or organizational score. So he can do this by getting his own examples also. Seventh principle is the remuneration of personnel. So employees should be compensated for their work justly and fairly. So moreover, the employer and employee should be satisfied about amount of remuneration and method of remuneration. Eighth principle is the centralization. When authorities are concerned and subordinate have less role in decision making, it is a centralization. When authorities are dispersed and subordinate also play a role in a decision making, it is said to be the decentralization. So the proportion of centralization to decentralization is a matter of individual circumstances and forces of environment. The degree of centralization and decentralization should aim at achieving twin objectives, that is the maximum utilization of resources and adaptability toward changing the environment. So the principle is scalar chain. It is a chain of a line authority ranking from highest rank to the lowest rank, and this also represents the chain of communication. Next principle is the order. This is the 10th. It relate to the manage arrangement of these things, and people in the organization. The principle emphasizes that there should be material as well as a social order. It means that there should be a place for everything, and everything should be in its proper place, and also it's a place for everyone, and everyone should be in his or her appointed place. Next principle is equity. So managers should be kind, fair, and impartial in dealing with subordinates. That is the equity. 12th principle is the stability of tenure. Employee should be given some job security. It takes time by the worker to understand his new job and become skillful in it. So if he is not given adequate time to learn his job and is demoted before he get accustomed to it, so he cannot render the valuable services to the organization. 13th principle is the initiative. The employee should be encouraged to think new ideas, and should also be allowed to implement them independently. So it will help them to develop and grow. So, moreover, freedom to perform will act as a moral booster. It will lead to job satisfaction and motivation to the employees. And last, the 14th principle is a spirited crop. The employee should be encouraged to work in team. Then unity is the strength, and unity in the employee is the foundation of that team spirit. So managers should avoid the philosophy of divide rules and regulations, that is the unity of the communication also. So that is the given by F.W. Taylor and Henry Fayol. Next part of that unit is the approaches to the management. That is the first classical approach, neoclassical approach, system approach are given in your book, and other approaches are also included in that approaches of management. So first of all, we will see the what is the classical approach. Actually, classical approach is divided into scientific, administrative, and bureaucracy part. This is the oldest form management thought, also known as it is also known as a traditional approach. Okay, so management process or empirical approaches, the management principles and practices were formalized for the first time after careful observation. The aim of the classical approach was based on a experience of practicing management. That is the universality of functions and the principle of that management. It was recognized during this period. Management is viewed as a systemic process of interrelated functions like planning, organizing, staffing, directing, and controlling to attain workers' efficiency through economic incentives. Here, the scientific approach we are covered previously, that is given by F.W. Taylor. Also, administrative theory, which is given by Henry Fayol, that is the covered in the contribution of management thinker in the management thoughts by Henry Fayol. And then, what is the bureaucracy? Bureaucracy is given by Max Weber. It is a professor of political economy in Germany. So, this concept of highly formalized structure. So, he argued that organization can reduce variability through formalization of behavior by introducing bureaucratic organization. So, this will make the activity of the organization predictable and easy to control. So, the main feature of that bureaucracy is a rational legal authority, hierarchy, division of work, rules, regulation, and procedures, records, interpersonal relationship, and also competency of employees. So there are some advantages, and these advantages are given here in the bureaucracy part. Its structure, its first advantage is the structure helps in gaining the advantage of specialization. Specialization improve the efficiency by reducing mistakes, increasing speed and quality of work. So highly perform structure based on rules, regulation, and specialized tasks. That is the lead to predictability. There is no room for uncertainty and chaos. Everyone knows what is expected from them, and no one crosses his or her boundaries. So the problem of role ambiguity is highly reduces. So, rules and regulations are formed after deliberate discussions. There are pros and cons of every rules are discussed. The decisions taken are more rational and not subjective. So, promotion selection is on the basis of qualification and competency. There is no room for bias or privileged treatment for some. Their rules and regulations are uniform for everybody. Such equitable treatment lead to high degree of democracy. And there are some disadvantages. That is the first is the bureaucracy is characterized by highly rigid and static structure. There is a strict adherence to rules. So it means the rules are not changed frequently. Okay, the environment is which the organization function is very dynamic, thus making rules redundant, and sometimes in the name of following rules, people may also avoid their responsibility. So too much emphasis on rules gives no space for emotions and needs of people. This is a highly mechanized structure where innovation ideas of people to get to not get much attention. Next theory is the neoclassical theory. This approach is also known as a behavioral approach. The boundary of behavioral approach is Elton Mayo, given by Elton Mayo, who was a professor at the Harvard Business School. Okay, the importance of human behavior was recognized for the first time after the finding of famous Hawthorne study. This classical approach treated human beings as economic beings who could be motivated through money, and a neoclassical approach argued that a human being can show better results in if they are treated well. So individual behavior as well as a group behavior plays a very crucial role in determining the performance of workers. So their studies are dependent on the elimination experiment, relay assemble test room experience, and human relations approach, and also behavioral approach. Then what is the human relation approach? According to the Kate Davis, human relation is a motivating people in organization in order to develop teamwork which effectively fulfills their needs and achieve organizational goals. So, the man is not just an economic being, but also a social being. The human relations approach focuses on people and believe that every individual is unique. So individuals can be motivated through varied social and psychological factors. Manager the manager should aim at creating a positive work environment. So if workers' needs are satisfied, so they will become more happy and productive. So human relations approach emphasize that productivity can be increased by motivating people. Next is the behavioral approach. That is the approach which focused on group dynamics, group behavior, and leadership, and also in communication and conflict among other issues. So behavioral approach is an improved and wider version of human relations. So it considers conflict as unavoidable and sometimes useful while human relation approach consider all conflict avoidable and harmful. So this major contributor of neoclassical approach are the Maslow's, A.H. Maslow's, M.C. Jorker, and Hertzberg and Likert. The neoclassical approach emphasizes that manager success depend upon his or her skills in handling the human element in the organization. So the quality of leadership is another critical factor in determining the success of organization. The limitation of this approach is that it lacks scientific validity, so it is the criticized for its simplistic and manipulative assumptions about relationship between the worker's attitude and the productivity. Next approach is quantitative approach. This it is also known as the operation research or the decision theory approach and also management science. This approach gained the popularity during World War and was used to develop the strategic and tactical military operation by the use of management sciences and operations management. So management science aims to improve the effectiveness of decision making through the use of statistical and the mathematical model. Quantitative approach aims at finding best solutions for the problem. After all, managers success depend upon his decision. So the correct decision can be made through the use of logical reasoning. It is backed by qualification. So the best solution can be achieved by solving that equations. There is the linear programming, game theory, inventory control, information theory, linear programming. Also, it's a probability theory, queuing theory, simulations, or statistical decision theory, and sampling theory that are the included in quantitative approach. Next is the system approach. Okay, what is the system approach? So, uh, in all these previous approaches, that is the classical, neoclassical, behavioral, human behavioral approach, uh, and quantitative approach, there are approaches share some common problem of viewing these in narrow perspective only. Okay, but classical approach focus on the scientific and administrative side of doing work. Neoclassical theory focus on just human behavior at the individual and group level, while quantitative approach was limited to optimization of decision making. So, in order to overcome these weaknesses, system theory was developed to view the big picture. That is the system approach theory. Okay, system approach means system is a set of interrelated subsystems. Any change in one system causes a change in another system. So the subsystem also have their subparts. So every system is also part of the super system. The subsystem in the organization can be departments. There are basically 5 subsystems in the organization. There are goals, resources, structure, management, and psychological subsystem. Okay, these are uh, basically um, implemented in each and every organization. So there exists a system boundary which operates it from the environment. The boundary is rigid in case of closed system, while it is a flexible in case of open system. So the boundary determines that which part is internal to the system and which part is external to the system. For example, the employees are internal to the organization system and customers are external to the organization system. Okay, so the advantages of this approach is that the manager are focused or forced to see the broader picture and look at the totality of the situation before arriving at any decision. The limitations of the system approach is that does not have specific tools and technique for the manager to practice. So the conceptual framework of this approach is criticized for being too vague. So the major contribution of the system approach is the Chester Bernard, R.A. Johnson, and the Winner and E.L. Trace. There are include the contingency approach also and modern approach also. This is the in detail are given in your book. Please throughout your book. And last part of that unit is MBO. That is the process of sorry MBO. That is the management by objectives. Here we covered just the process of MBO and um, their importance of MBO. So what is the concept of MBO? In 1945, the Peter Drucker coined the term management by objectives. It is a technique in which measurable goals are set by joint effort of senior and subordinate, and the contribution of each individual is measured in terms of their accomplishment of the goals. The goals set in MBO are not unilaterally set by the superior or imposed on the subordinate. So these identified goals are set in the close consultation with subordinate. So MBO management by objective is an autonomous and participative style of management. So the concept has become popular these days as a rewarding style of management. It focuses concentration on the achievement of objectives through partaking and involvement of an concerned person. So the basic assumption behind such a philosophy is that when people are aware of the expectation from them, they align their personal goal with the organizational goal and can perform better. So further, the joint goal setting, the superior or subordinate participation and support from superior to subordinate are the important characteristics of MBO management of objectives. So this improves the employees and the morale to motivate the employees. There is on your screen there is the MBO process, that is the uh, starting from preliminary goal setting. It means define organization goals, then setting subordinate objectives, define employee objectives, and action planning. That is a continue monitoring to the performance and progression. And next is the providing performance review. That is a providing feedback. And last is the final appraisal. That is include the performance appraisal and performance evaluation. So in the preliminary goal setting, there is the initial stage in the process of MPO is to identify the organizational objectives. So the top management generally in consultation with the other managers determined it. So the important aspect in determining these is identifying key result areas. So once these goals are identified, they must be shared with other members also. So next part is the setting specific performance objectives. That is the define employees objectives. This is the organization goals can only be achieved if they are divided and if the individual perform the given task. So therefore, every individual should be informed about the task that is the expected from them. So the subordinate should be consulted before the providing with the sources for performing the task. So the resources provided should be proportionate according to the goals. Or goal setting is a two-way process. It is a not imposed on the subordinate by the superior, and superior suggests the goal to subordinate, and subordinate accepts it. So this is the process is depending on the preliminary goal setting. That means define organization's goal. Next is development of action plan or monitoring performance and progress. So after the goal or setting actions, after the goal setting, action plans are developed to bring the things into force. Also, procedure are formed for achievement of set goals under MBO. The subordinates and superior jointly and interactively perform a given task. So the superior gives the suggestions and the subordinate perform. The objectives are so formed that every objective accomplished at lower level. So contribute to the fulfillment of that goals of that organization. So for the evaluation of key areas, checkpoints are also established. So next process is providing feedback or periodic performance review at a specified time interval. In the providing, please mute your mic. As a, in the providing feedback, there is a specified time interval evaluation of the work is done with the joint participation to the identifying shortcomings or deviations if any. So subordinate and superior sit and discuss about the problem areas. That is the identifying feedbacks and suggestions are made available for the potential development. The main purpose is to improve the quality instead for focusing on criticism. And last is the performance appraisal and performance evaluation. That is the final appraisal. At the end of the year, performance of the individual is evaluated on the basis of task completed. There are n number of methods which are given for the performance evaluation. The standards which are set are compared with the actual. The actual work is evaluated based on which the appraisal or reward of the subordinate is decided. This is the process of management by objectives, but there are some importance of that MBO. That is the helps in it is a helps in reducing wastages of resources as the resources are provided in the proportion to goals set. It helps in making planning effective with the help of action plan and result oriented the planning. So the subordinates is able to relate his goals with the organizational objectives and feels proud of his contribution towards the organizational objectives. It induces team spirit with democratic and a participative style of work. It gives MBO gives a subordinate valuable feedback through the system of periodic evaluation. The employee become aware of its progress and can take timely corrective action if he is lacking somewhere. So MBO induces the employee morale as their participation is given due consideration. Also, the reward are according to the contribution which raises their morale. So, and MBO is acts as a effective tool of self-control as every individual knows that what is the expected out of him, which help in self regulation. That are the important. Uh, One second. There are some limitations of management. That is the management by objectives. First is rigidity. Next is goal setting, time consuming, unhealthy environment, participation problem, and managerial skill. That are the limitations of MBO. So, in rigidity, the problem is that it sometimes fails to incorporate preventive action. trends and the current scenario of that organization. So next limitation of signature matter should even more performance or quantity or quality, but the goal should be or short term. Crucial qualitative goals like job satisfaction. Next limitation is a time consuming. Setting up of goal that are measurable and that too in a participative style require a lot of time. So instilling confidence, deciding on tasks, all this requires a lot of time. So the process of evaluation and performance appraisal that is involves considerable paperwork and time. Next limitation is unhealthy environment. That is the sometimes more emphasis is laid on work rather than improving the quality, which produces a lot of pressure and unhealthy. So competition between work group. And next limitation is the participation problem at the time to avoid the vestiges superior do not consult coordinates and set the goal authoritatively, which loses the essence of the process. And last limitation is the managerial skill. This is the limitation of also management by objectives. Some managers may not be very good at a human skill. Okay? They may not be effective in motivating and leading people toward the goal. So the subordinate may not get necessary guidance and counseling during the process. So here we covered the MBO process, MBO's importance also. So I hope you all have understood this session. Please fill your attendance sheet and in next session we will see cover the functions of management, that is the planning, organizing, staffing, directing, controlling also, and also the motivation series and the international management studies. Okay, so we will stop here. हाँ मैडम क्योंकि आले okay.
Same.